have said this time and time again that having boundaries and clear systems is key to creating a sustainable business. And yet nearly 80% of entrepreneurs work over 60 hours a week, contributing to burnout. Today's episode, you are going to see how effective it is when you implement boundaries in your business. Becca Bunch, CEO of Homemade Social, a boutique marketing agency, shares with us the boundaries and systems she implemented to create the business of her dreams. Becca shares with us her story and shows us how decreasing the number of hours her team worked led to more profit in her business. If you are someone who struggles with boundaries and are wanting to learn how systems and boundaries can lead to more revenue in your business, then this is an episode that you definitely want to tune in. If you love today's conversation, make sure to like and subscribe so you never have to miss an episode. Hello, Becca. How are we doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to have you here because I feel like, number one, first of all, I love Homemade Social and your guys' social media. It is chef's kiss. So
Thanks.
You guys are killing the game. But also too, I'm really excited just to really talking about burnout with you because I feel like as business owners, we hear this all the time as a topic, and I feel like it's become a trending word, self-care as well. But I truly do believe that one of the most successful ways to prevent burnout is having systems in place. And it's not sexy, right? I say this all the time, like systems aren't sexy, but it truly is the key to really living the life and business, having the life and business of your dreams. Like you can have both. And you are somebody that exhibits that. So I'm really excited to have you here today.
I know. I can't wait to dive in. I feel like I have so much tea to spill.
Say less, spill it. Let's go. So let's talk about it. Where, you have an agency, right? You have a life, like you said, you just recently got married. So all the things happening. And I think as independent business owners, we're always wearing multiple hats. And so I'm really curious to know for you, where in your life were you experiencing burnout? Where did you finally just decide like, okay, like I can't do this. Like I need to figure this out. Like walk us through that journey for you.
Yes. Okay. So the most important thing to learn or like to set the precedent here is I mostly learned a lot about boundaries during 2020, which, historical context, you guys can maybe figure out where I'm going with this.
Yes.
But basically what happened in 2020, I was like 2 years into agency ownership and maybe 3-4 years into like self-employment. So I was still kind of new at the game. Mm-hmm. And when quarantine hit, there was kind of like a dip in clients immediately. Like some of our clients were plastic surgery centers, and like they remember that there was like the no elective surgery rule. So like they literally couldn't operate. And so like we lost a couple clients due to the quarantine and everything. And then within a couple months, we were like the busiest we've ever been because quickly so many people realized that like their traditional marketing dollars that maybe they were previously spending on events, on in real life, like on billboards anywhere was no longer as useful. And so they were turning to social media. So it was kind of this crazy, like weird dip in business. But what happened was essentially there's always one client, right? Who like oversteps your boundaries.
Always.
And I'm forever grateful for working with her because, thankfully I worked with her early enough on where my systems were small enough to like, they were still really manageable for me to fix, right? And like kind of like implement these boundaries around. So I really was just feeling like burnout in a couple of ways, not only especially from like this client side, but being on social media all the time in an election year when algorithms were just like kind of toxic at the time. There wasn't really much else for me to do. Like I was working from home. I would, be done with work and usually want to enjoy social media. And it was just like this never ending feedback cycle for me of just like, I didn't really have like a work-life balance anymore. And I just knew something had to change. So I kind of started that process in 2020.
Yeah, I feel like so many people can relate to, but I think too, you had a very unique perspective as somebody that works in the social media realm, which I wanted to highlight because in 2020, many photographers, right, that was the event space. A lot of photographers were put on pause, but you, on the other hand, you went on pause shortly, but then immediately your business had skyrocketed. So it's just really interesting just to have a different perspective of how everybody has such a different perspective of how the pandemic truly affected them and their business.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Yes, but we learned so many different things within that. And so one thing that I'm really curious for you about is obviously you had that one client, which we all have, but what systems did you immediately start implementing into your business? Because my thing is that we are all business owners. We know that we need to have certain systems in place, right? With like contracts, invoices, all those different types of things. But I really also want us to talk about the systems that you need to have in place that business owners aren't even potentially thinking of that can really literally take the work off their plate. Because I have this data here, nearly 80% of entrepreneurs work over 60 hours per week. And I'm guilty of that. I definitely was. I know there's so many of us where, we're like, oh yeah, we leave our 9 to 5 because we don't want to work all the time. But then you end up working 24/7 when you're an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
I really want to talk about what are some systems that you initially put into place, but also what are some systems that we can have in place that we're just not even thinking of as business owners?
Yes. Okay. So the main areas I put in boundaries: calendar, phone, email, and social media. And I kind of did little bits here and there. But I know you mentioned working 70 hours a week. After I implemented these boundaries and started working through these new systems and better boundaries contractually, in 2022, we downsized our hours as an agency from all across the board. We worked 40 hours a week. And as of 2022, we are able to work 35 hours a week. And obviously there's exceptions. Sometimes we're off at noon on Fridays, and sometimes you have to wrap up a project or whatever. But it has allowed us to work less hours. And so that's literally all everyone wants, right? So it was really the main motivator. And also I think the main motivator was mental health. And I think a lot of women, especially female entrepreneurs, can be people pleasers because we're just go-getters. We'll figure it out. We'll make it happen. And that can stem from people pleasing. And so when you're working in a service-based industry with clients, it can be hard to be you can't do that, but I technically don't have a rule that says you can't, or I don't want you to do that. And so it was kind of figuring out rewriting our contract to implement the calendar, phone, email, social media boundaries that I wanted. So from a social media standpoint, I think the biggest thing from a calendar standpoint was, okay, so I'm only available 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, and then 9 to noon on Fridays. However, no same day client meetings are allowed unless we say it's an emergency. There's almost never an emergency. But the way we kind of get around that is we always have a standing meeting with a client, whether it's bi-weekly or monthly. So it's easy for us if a client's hey, can we talk about this? I can be yes, just added it to our meeting agenda for Thursday. It kind of just helps the client to get in the mindset of you have a meeting with me coming up, we will discuss it then. Other things I do for my calendar, I block off an hour for lunch every day. That doesn't mean I'm away from work for an hour that day or at that time eating. It means I just don't have meetings in an hour of my day, which is sometimes that's all you need, right? Or else my calendar can fill up pretty quickly. And then other rules go to take it even farther. It's I only take discovery calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we try and do just internal meetings Monday, Wednesday. So just allows for a little bit of balance. My team knows when they can expect to hear from me or when I'm going to be in meetings. Any questions on calendar? Should I elaborate anywhere before I go to the next step?
I think people are really curious, right? Because you also said too that you have some of these boundaries implemented into your contracts. Correct. And so, which I think when we're thinking of and contracts, right, are great. But when we think of contracts, I always will put communication preferences, right? You can't contact me with this time and this time, or the best way to communicate with me, the times that I'm available, emails. But I'm are there anything as well of other things that you implement into those those boundaries into your contracts as well?
Kind of another step to take it could be, okay, let's say you say I'm only available via email, which is what we do say.
Yep.
We also say you can expect us to reply within 24 business hours. So they know that I'm going to get back to you really quickly. And so that kind of negates them to feel pressure to want to text me, or if they're going to slide into my DMs to try and find me or whatever. We are available on email. I will get back to you, or someone from my team will. Other things I do is I include our hours of operation in my email signature, just as kind of a friendly reminder. And then out of offices, we make sure to communicate that well in advance to clients. Same sort of thing. Like there's verbiage you can put in your contract that like says these are office hours, but obviously, with respect to planned vacation time and whatever. So we also put like out of offices. We'll anticipate our out of offices and go over with it, or go over each client, or go over those out of offices with each client in their reoccurring meetings, so they know like, hey, this is on the docket. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to be out. Is there anything I can handle for you prior? Just to like, no one wants to email you and just get an unexpected out of office. Other things I have, well, like I said, I wrote our half day Fridays into our contract. So like that's helpful. And then other meeting policies, I think I kind of went over. So that's kind of it for calendar.
Yeah, no, but I think that's great though. I think it really gives business owners an idea of your contracts that you're laying out. It truly is what you make of it. So there is nothing too big or too small to include into your contract to make sure that your clients are abiding by that. And especially as you have a team, I mean, the fact that you're able to get them down from working 40 hours, your whole team down to 35, that's pretty
And we saw
awesome.
44% growth in revenue when we did that.
And 44% growth in revenue when you did that, all from these simple boundaries of like discovery calls on these specific days, internal meetings on these specific days. And so I think that's phenomenal of how much that can really make a big difference in your business. And so for you, with having these boundaries in place, how has that really benefited your team and yourself, even as a CEO?
I would say it allows you to like focus on the work you're meant to do instead of having to regroup every time a client asks something that's like outside of your boundaries and having to recommunicate like, hey, that's not something that we do. Like you're just like explaining yourself and having to like reset these boundaries again and again. And so if you like set those relationship expectations from the beginning in your contract, it just makes it so much easier to like, we can operate really systemically and very like lean, because we know like, hey, this client knows we are responsible for these deliverables, and anything outside of that, we will get their approval on if it's needed at our hourly rate. So it's like, we know exactly what we're responsible for going into the week.
Yeah, I'm really curious to know too with how you handle with communication at times as well, when you know that a client isn't necessarily really sticking to your boundaries, or like how are you, any communication tips for business owners as well?
Yes. So I actually, we took a course, or like did a consultation with this another female business owner based in Chicago. Her business is called Career Civility. And same sort of thing. We were running into this issue where we're like, okay, the client signed that they agreed to respect these boundaries, and then they don't. And so it's like, how do we go about replying to them while still knowing we have 5 months left in this working relationship? We want it to be, we don't want to burn any bridges. And she basically helped us to come up with a series of email templates, or like templated phrases that we can use that shows, that we are empathetic. We hear what they're saying per our agreement. I do want to flag that this is a boundary we have here, or like a rule in our contract. So I would highly recommend, if you're kind of struggling with communicating that, especially via email, reach out to Jenna at Career Civility.
Oh, I love that. I love for you. Like, look, I wasn't good at this, but I know somebody who was.
And it's definitely like, you have to be willing to and able to do that. Like if you implement these boundaries, you're going to enter this like new level where you will have new problems. They're going to be better problems, but they're going to be different problems. And you can't be afraid to like seek help to make them more manageable.
Yeah. Another thing I'm really curious about too is when you have existing clients, how are you implementing new systems and boundaries with existing clients? I think sometimes we can get so nervous about that, especially whether it's like, okay, I had a client that I've worked with and now I'm raising this rate. You know what I mean? Just so many different things where we get so nervous about communicating things to our current clients. How are you navigating that?
Yes, I was nervous about that too. I haven't had to do that. Like I kind of had to do that once, because as we formulated the new contract, we made sure immediately like new clients got put on that. And so I really only had to email like existing clients once. And yes, I would say year over year, we do maybe tweak little things in the agreement. But we usually just ask them to like re-sign an updated agreement when their term is up for renewal. But I remember when we had those new like terms come in place, I just emailed all clients kind of like a templated email saying, we hope that these new systems will allow us to better serve all clients, because like from their perspective, they can think of it as like now Homemade Social's other clients aren't going to be wasting their time asking for X, Y, and Z or pushing these boundaries. And I know they're really just going to be focused on the work. So
Yeah.
kind of nice.
I love that. And something I want to shift a little bit, because I saw this on your social media page and I thought it was really interesting, is in terms of you, which I think I was like, I view this as a boundary, and I thought it was a really unique and interesting one. So you charge to onboard your clients, which I was like, huh, that's really interesting. Can you explain why?
Yes. Okay. So in the world of social media management, typically you're on a retainer, and it's usually like 3, 6, 12 months. And I think kind of like industry standard, whether it's social media or not, you charge like a kind of a flat monthly fee for your deliverables. But if you think about it, the vast majority of your team's work or your work needs to be done in those initial like 30 days of your working relationship, because you're getting up to speed with their brand guide, their brand voice. You are inputting their marketing calendar requests. You're like basically all getting on the same page. And there's a lot of admin work that is required to do that. And then we would run into issues where like 6 months into a relationship, a client would maybe just like stop paying. And if you think about it, if you're looking at a 6-month relationship, those first 30 days, you're doing so much more work than say the last 30 days, because you're already up to speed and you have a great idea of their brand voice by month 6. And so you're getting paid the same each month when the work isn't necessarily the same heavy lift. And so we decided to, for the first 30 days, there's like essentially an onboarding fee. And then the retainer technically starts like on like month 2, if you will.
I love that though, because number one, you took the time to really check in with yourself and your business to really see what was working and wasn't working. And then really charging a fee that like making the shift that's going to make sense to where you are fairly compensated for your work. And so is your team. And I think that just goes to show about just you being a CEO. I think that's just so key of, because I used to work in social media management and I never thought of that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, that's so flipping true with all the work that you do at the very beginning, getting acclimated with their brand, because you're making graphics, like all of this amount of work. And you have to shift your mindset because you need to sound like them, right? Like people need to be convinced that this is right, that this is who they are. And so it does take a lot of work up front. And so I love that you were like, all right, this isn't working. Let me just shift here and make a change with that in a way that really makes sense, because now, and I consider that a unique boundary, because now has that led to a more higher quality in clients?
Totally. And it makes them respect our onboarding system more, because they're like, we know we're paying for this. We better get them every asset, every documentation, every login that they could possibly need to succeed. And I think a lot of it, kind of like what you said, goes into almost self-worth. Like, you know, you're not born this way, getting ready to like take invoices from people, right? And it allows you to kind of sell this more like elevated white glove client experience.
Yes,
Like
elevated
our
white
first 30
glove.
days are special. We really dive in and take a deep look at what you're doing.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Like really any ways that you can really elevate that client experience. Do you have any other tips and ways that you really help elevate that, really giving that white glove service?
I would say a lot of our email communication is like A1. Like we 10 times out of 10 are going to be more organized as a marketing unit than any of our clients' existing marketing units. And like that's intentional. Like I want to impress them with our systems, the way we handle like marketing requests and marketing calendar planning, because I want them to see like, wow, I can't believe we weren't doing it that way. Like this is so much better. And again, they see the value in it. There's like a lot, like, I guess that should be my next podcast episode, is just like white service, white glove, like tips for working with service-based clients.
I know. And please share more of these tips.
I'm thinking like, we try and send them like a birthday gift. We try we
Yes.
try and pay
Mm-hmm.
extra attention from like an account management side to actually
Yes.
like build a relationship with them.
I love that though, but I love how you said even too with email communication, because I think even when a client first inquires, the
Mm-hmm.
person is more than likely to book with the person who replies the fastest. So even the fact that you said like email communication is A1, and we really make sure that whether, putting in marketing requests, anything like that, really having those systems in place that really just elevate the experience. Because again, even business owners are always so afraid to raise their prices or add in additional rates, but you did that, and then you got better quality clients who take you more
Mm-hmm.
seriously as an entrepreneur, where that they are causing you like no stress, right? Like I always notice the clients who aren't willing to pay are the ones who become the most stressful to work with.
Yes,
It's
always, always, always.
always. But the fact that you were like, hey, we're going to implement this new fee, the onboarding fee, which is brilliant. We are going to make sure that our email communication is A1 from the jump. We are going to make sure that we have these boundaries in place in our contracts, and they are
Mm-hmm.
boundaries that work for you and your business. That's what I love, is that you have truly customized your business to truly work for you and your team, because business is not a one size fit all. And I just love that you have
Yeah,
really
not at
taken
all.
that time.
And I have more in relation to boundaries, but this one's more on like the personal side.
Yeah.
I'll take it away. So,
Take it away, girl. Yes.
have you heard of the app called Open Phone?
No.
Okay, I'm about to blow your mind. It's basically it's an app. It's I think $15 or $16 a month,
Mhm.
and it allows you to have a phone number associated just with that app
Mhm.
for calls and texts. And so I give our clients that phone number. It's the only one listed anywhere. And keep in mind, again, our only approved form of communication is email. But there's always sometimes where like maybe I have to call them, or
Mhm.
our like two-factor authentication, like something got sent to their cell. I just need to like get a code real quick or something.
Mhm.
And so this app is amazing because it automatically, you can set it up to turn on like do not disturb hours at 5 p.m. or like whatever schedule you want. It will
Mhm.
automatically send any calls to voicemail. And if someone texts me, I can automatically reply with a text after 5 p.m. that states like, hey, you've reached me outside of business hours. Per our contract, reminder that we ask all communication happens via email, like that sort of thing. And it has saved me just like so much of a headache, because there can be just like sometimes clients become friends, right? And you can kind of get
Mhm.
a little bit gray with like texting or personal time. And so has just saved me like so much headache when communicating with clients in those situations.
Oh my gosh, that is brilliant. What is it called? Is it Open Phone, you said?
Open phone, yes.
Open
And
Phone.
the next amazing thing, they have an integrated desktop app. So like
Mm.
I can have my team, like our account manager also has the app on her phone. So she
Mhm.
can like, if she also wanted to text clients, hey, we just sent you a two-factor authentication code. And then it syncs with Slack. So we have a Slack number or a Slack channel that says phone. And so anyone on the team can see like if a two-factor authentication is coming through from a client.
Oh my gosh, but that is a perfect example of a system,
Yes,
right? That you have implemented that absolutely saves you time. And I think we just
totally.
don't realize how much time really does compound day to day, even a second. That second that you just had to take to respond to somebody
To
is
reset that boundary, be like,
to
oh, do I want to just reply and get it over with? Or like, can I help them with this 5-minute request? Sure. But like, now I don't have to worry about it. I'm setting that boundary. I get to them the next morning.
Yeah, 1000%. And they feel still very well taken care of. Like that is
Mm-hmm.
what I
Right. It's
think.
not like I'm just ghosting them or, yeah.
Exactly. I think that's a huge misconception too with business owners, is that we feel that if we are not replying right away, or going out of our way in that type of way, that they will interpret it that they're not being well taken care of, and that is further from the truth. When you give something that's very streamlined, very professional, they are going to feel very well taken care of. They are going to feel like that you are their only client. And I think that is one of the biggest things as a business owner. Like if you can make that person feel like they're your only client, even though they obviously aren't, but it's that feeling that you're giving them, they're always, always, always going to come back.
That's
And
really
so, and
nice.
yes, and like you provide such great white glove service, like even that with an app, like even business owners, think of some certain apps that work really well for you. For me personally, I love the app Groove. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
No.
it is a task management app. Like it's a co-working app. So you log into it and you can start a session and 3 other people will come into the session with you. And you guys all share your goals of what you're working on for that hour, 50 minutes, and you hit start. And then all of you put in your to-do list and you guys are all working together for 50 minutes. And then you regroup and like, how did you do? Did it work out great? And it is such a great way to be more productive, where I have it on my phone, but I have everything else on D&D except the Groove app. So then it notifies me when to come back. But yeah, I just have it knocked out for my 50 minutes. And I do that. And I've also made community members and also other people have helped me like in my business and vice versa. I've made really great relationships through that. So again, even business owners, like really think about what are some things that you struggle with as a business owner. I think just creating like even a list of like, here are the things I enjoy doing, here are the things I don't enjoy doing, even in terms of like client work, whatever things, and what can you delegate or automate, period. And like, what are the apps that can really help? Like Groove, when my mind is going everywhere and I can't like think, like I get overwhelmed, I instantly will make a list and I'm like, all right, well, Groove. And I just go from there, but it's so
I think
smart.
I've seen that on TikTok or something, but I didn't know what the app was.
Yes, it's fantastic. I mean, I love it. And it's a
Cool.
great app. And you meet community people of like all different industries. There's writers on there, professors, so again, like business owners, really just think of things that you need to do and like explore different apps, explore what you can automate, explore what you can delegate. And I think you've done that just so beautifully.
Two other kind of like phone boundaries I do. I deleted the email app from my phone. Like I can go to gmail.com if I need to, if it's an emergency. But like I said, clients know I'll get back to them within 24 hours. Nothing's really an emergency. I'm usually at my laptop during office hours anyways. And then I also use a screen time limiting app called Opal. Have you heard of Opal?
Oh, no, I've not heard of Opal.
It's similar. It's kind of like the X Games mode version of like Apple's regular screen time limitations. But this one, my favorite like limitation I set for it is it kind of has like a doom scroll feature. So if I'm on a single app for more than 15 minutes, it'll kick me off.
That's a good idea too.
Isn't that amazing? So, like I have that set for like Instagram and TikTok. Like it's basically like you've been on this app too long consistently and it'll kick me off. And it's usually just like a 15-minute waiting period to like get back in, and I can like override it if I have to, but it helps a lot.
Oh my God, that's so smart too. And a question I'm really curious about, because obviously you work for an agency, but I think in terms of like business owners who are solopreneurs, what as you have even boundaries, because I think a lot of it is like many business owners feel very discouraged of consistently showing up on social media. And so what systems, even before you had like this agency, maybe like what systems were you implementing to where you were just consistently showing up? Because I think that's the key, right? Is consistency to be successful on social media, good quality content and consistency.
Well, we treat our own social media exactly like we do with clients. Same system, same deadlines internally. So I think it helps that like that has always been in place. And obviously like my role now, I'm more so just like, I have just the final approval on what gets published. But back in the day, I'd be a little bit more involved, like 3 or 4 years ago. So it's just like helpful. I think my team knows and appreciates that like I kind of let them have creative freedom there as long as certain like KPIs are being met and like our brand voice is still being addressed and utilized. Like I still want to continue to grow, but they're in the nitty gritty of it, and they're like on social media like potentially more than I am. And so I'm like, yeah, like have fun with it.
I love that. I love how you're giving people their creative freedom and you're just like, hey, like, again, that gives people that option to be innovative. And even as a business owner, I think it just goes to the fact of like, if you're somebody like trying to figure out how to be more consistent, of like, this is a really good opportunity to really experiment and see what works for you and see what doesn't, like what do you like and what you don't like. Right. And we've also shared this too, where, think of platforms where that's kind of more your safe space, where like maybe you don't have an audience that like isn't very big, like TikTok. Like, so a lot of people are like, well, I'm not on TikTok. I'm like, well, that's the perfect place to go ahead and try different things and see, because nobody's on there. And that's when you can have fun and feel more comfortable, and then if something works, then try it on a platform that you like, that has more weight to it, like Instagram, like, or where like ever your audience is. I think that's just such a great way of like really figuring out what works best for you on social media. So I think
it allows you to maybe like get out of a creative rut too. Like I think a lot of people feel like Instagram is like they feel afraid to post sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I think that if you're like, just try a new channel, you might find you like it better.
1000%. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And so you just never know. Like right now I've been leaning more into Pinterest and I love Pinterest.
Yeah.
And in this season of my life, Pinterest makes sense for me. Right. And I'm like, it
Yeah.
can absolutely change later on. But right now, because I've like decided to redo my whole blogging strategy and all of that. And like Pinterest right now is where I'm at. And I
Yeah.
absolutely enjoy. And I know it's not, I mean, it's more of a search engine, of course, but like, again, really thinking about as a business owner, where are you at in your season? What are the things you need to get done? What are things you
Mhm.
enjoy, not so much enjoy? What can you automate and just really delegate? And I just love that you have really found systems and tools that have worked really, really, really well for you. So want to ask, are there any other tools or anything that you have seen really just make a big difference for you?
I'll say the last thing as like an agency owner, a social media agency owner, I have the feature turned off on Instagram where I can't see Instagram likes. Because I
Oh,
found
yeah.
that if I was like after work hours, I'm scrolling. I follow all of our client accounts and I
Mm-hmm.
want to support them and see them succeed. Let's say it's like 8 p.m. I'm unplugged for the day, but I'm scrolling for personal enjoyment. I see a client post that flopped. Immediately,
Mm.
my brain goes into like, how can we fix this? What can I put on my list for tomorrow? Should I archive it? Like, it just turns into like more work for myself.
Yeah.
And so by turning off Instagram likes, it also helps with like comparison. Like if you're looking at a
Mm.
competitor and you're paying attention to their likes, it just kind of like evens the playing field.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that has definitely helped too.
Oh, I love that. I feel like you've given like a lot of really great advice on how to create boundaries and stick to them and the tools that help you stick to them. And that's why I think like, again, like your team has been able to make more revenue working less hours. And so that is just so, so key and so beneficial. So every question that we like to end with is, what do you think is the biggest differentiator between the businesses that succeed and the ones that fail?
Personal development. Like I
Mm,
think as a CEO, so much of our success is reliant on like my self-worth.
mm,
And
mm-hmm,
like obviously my employees' self-worth too, but like if I decided today that like this is the biggest I ever want to be,
mm,
I don't mind if clients are upset with me or, like so much of your self-worth will be
mm,
reflected in your business. And
mm,
so the more you can kind of work to uncover what it is that's maybe like holding you back, or I don't know if you're woo woo at all, but like sometimes they use the term like your shadow, like
mm,
diving
mm-hmm,
into your shadow and figuring out like what limiting beliefs do you have around growing your business or becoming someone who is successful or becoming someone who has a lot of money or who manages a huge team. Like
mm,
those are all huge considerations when you do want to scale and grow a business, and you kind of
mm-hmm,
like unlock new fears each time you level up. So
mm-hmm.
don't be afraid to do the inner work, and it'll always pay off.
Oh, 1000%. I love that so much because that is something that we've just heard so many business owner time and time again that come on this show and essentially just say like it's really true like what's between your ears whether you're going to have a successful business or not. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the times we consistently are like, I want to have a six-figure business and I'm going to work hard to get it, but it's like we never anticipate how we're going to react when we hit a bump on the road, right? And I think again it's like
Exactly.
really doing that internal work to really know how you are, what your triggers are, and so that you when things do come up you are doing it in a healthy way that's not going to completely derail you and your business. And so I love that personal development that goes beyond of like, oh yeah, I'm going to take this course on, how to run Instagram. It's like, are you going to therapy? Or if you don't need therapy, like what ways are you taking care of yourself? Like any
Right.
types of ways to where like you're doing that internal work. And I love that you said the shadow work because I've definitely have heard about that. And I've kind of been exploring that more too myself of like, okay, like this is my
Mm-hmm.
shadow and this is who I am. And instead of like repressing it, I'm going to lean more into that because that is my gift. Like, how can I maximize the gifts that I already have? And how can I
Yes.
maximize what I'm already good at
And
instead
you
of,
can find that in different ways. It could
mm-hmm,
be, doing manifestation. It could be joining a mastermind with like-minded or similar sized business owners. It could
mm-hmm.
be hiring a life coach. It could be therapy. Like it could be
So
all of
many
the
different
above.
ways, all of the above, like whatever
I've
it is that
basically
you
done all of these at some point or another.
but they've all led to your growth into the business owner that you are now to where you have been able to scale. You don't have to choose between having a successful business and a successful life. You have both. And I
Yes.
think
Those are
that
very
is
well said.
the thing that we have to remind independent business owners is
Yeah.
that you don't have to choose. And I know like a lot of us solopreneurs that are in the thick of it right
Mhm.
now, but you don't have to choose. It's out there. Really take that time really, again, like I said, automate and delegate. So yes.
We need to get in like a part 2 of you and I booked like 3 years from now, because I feel like I'm about to embark on like this next chapter where like I just got married and I know that the next chapter for me is starting a family, and I'm starting to like nest my business, if that makes sense. Like I'm starting to try and like look at what systems do I need to automate now to have like a boundary filled maternity leave.
Yes, but I think
check back in with me in like 3 years. I'll give you my tips.
Yes, but I love that though, right? I think the fact that you're already thinking about it in your mind of like, what kind of systems can I have in place for this next phase of my life?
Right.
So like, yeah, you're nesting your business, but then you're also preparing your life to where like your business is still able to run even through the most beautiful journey, like beautiful moments of life. And I think that's such a good key. Like, I think there's nothing wrong with planning. And of course, life is life. Like things are going to hit the fan, of course, but you are like, what systems can I have in place just to make things a little bit easier for me in this moment and in this time? And I love that so much. So yeah, we'll get you back here in 3 years, girl. Like that sounds great. And Becca, thank you so much for this conversation. I think it's been really great just to see somebody who has a successful business. And again, like we hear about systems, we hear about boundaries, but to see somebody that's implementing it regularly, like you're like, this is not going to throw me off. I'm going to keep doing this because I have worked too hard for the business that I have, the life that I have. So like, these are the things that I have implemented. And I just love that you have really created a business that genuinely works for you and have customized things that work very well for your team. So where can people connect with you? How can we support you?
Thank you so much. So if you head to homemadesocial.com, you'll be able to find basically everything from there. But my personal Instagram handle is bbooks, BBOOKS. I just want to say, like, if you hear these boundaries that I've talked about and you're like, oh, that would be such a pain to implement, or like I might lose clients, the clients who respect your boundaries will stay. And that's all that matters. You don't want the other clients anyways. And you will be happier and you'll have a more fruitful business because you're working with clients who respect you, and you will therefore be happier and happier to service them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that you even shared that, because I think, it's just so important, because we always view it as like, we can have these like tunnel vision of like the clients that we have in that scarcity mindset of like, oh my gosh, like they're not going to want to work with me because you're implementing something that's really going to benefit your business and you and benefit your client. I think we have to realize
that's you like protecting yourself. Like that's you being like, I don't want anyone in my circle who's not going to respect these.
Yeah. And like, if you want to be able to provide the most white glove, best service possible for your clients, you have to be full. You have to be able to be your best self so that you can show up your best for your clients. And I think, again, that's just such a key thing. You've just given so many good tips. Now I'm like, I'm going to go back and review my boundaries and like, what else can I implement into my contracts that I didn't even think.
I want to go sign up for a group session right after this.
I know. Do it. Oh my gosh. Yes. And let me know how it goes. And thank you so much again, Becca, for being here.
And for me. I appreciate it. So great chatting. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you. Until next time. That ends our episode of the Independent Business Podcast. Everything we've discussed today can be found at podcast.honeybook.com. Head to our website to access for show notes, relevant links, and all of the resources that you need to level up. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast to make sure you never miss our future content. Drop us a review and leave our guests some love on social. And thank you again for listening.